They say democracy is the best form of government. But what happens when it's exported at gunpoint, backed by coups, or drenched in oil and blood? These are the top 10 times the United States brought its so-called democracy to other nations, and left chaos in its wake. Number 10. Haiti, 1994 and 2004. Democracy on a leash. Haiti's first democratically elected president, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, was overthrown in a military coup just months after taking office. In 1994, the U.S. sent troops to restore him, but only after securing conditions to protect American interests. A decade later, in 2004, Aristide was ousted again under murky circumstances, claiming the U.S. forced him into exile. For Haiti, democracy seemed conditional, delivered only if it danced to Washington's tune. Number 9. Panama, 1989. Just cause or just control? Operation Just Cause. The U.S. invasion to remove former ally Manuel Noriega, accused of drug trafficking and undermining democracy. But behind the scenes, it was about maintaining control of the Panama Canal and suppressing a leader who stopped following U.S. orders. The invasion left hundreds of Panamanians dead and entire neighborhoods flattened. Noriega was gone, but democracy was collateral damage. Number 8. Iran, 1953. Oil over elections. Mohammad Mossadegh, Iran's elected prime minister, nationalized the oil industry, threatening British and American corporate profits. The CIA responded with Operation Ajax, a covert coup that overthrew Mossadegh and reinstated the Shah, a U.S.-friendly autocrat. For 26 years, Iran suffered under brutal monarchy until the 1979 Iranian Revolution. A single election ended in exile and bitterness that still echoes today. Number 7. 1954. The Banana Republic Blueprint. President Jacobo Arbenz tried to redistribute unused land to poor farmers, including some owned by the United Fruit Company, a major United States corporation. The CIA labeled him a communist and orchestrated a coup. Arbenz was ousted and military rule began. Guatemala descended into civil war for decades, all because democracy dared to challenge American economic interests. The Guatemala coup established a pattern that would be repeated in other Latin American countries during the Cold War. It demonstrated the willingness of the U.S. to intervene against democratically elected governments that were perceived as threats to American economic interests or potential Soviet allies. Number 6. 2011. Libya. During the Arab Spring, NATO, led by the United States, launched airstrikes against Muammar Gaddafi's forces under the banner of protecting civilians. Gaddafi was killed. But there was no plan for what came next. Libya fractured into chaos, with warlords, rival governments, and open-air slave markets. A dictatorship was toppled, but democracy never arrived. Number 5. 1973. A Chilean inconvenience. Salvador Allende became the first Marxist president elected in a liberal democracy. The United States feared a socialist domino effect in Latin America. Through economic sabotage and covert operations, Washington backed a military coup. General Augusto Pinochet took power, torturing and killing thousands. The message? Democracy is fine as long as it isn't leftist. Number 4. 1960. A dream eliminated. Patrice Lumumba, Congo's first elected prime minister, wanted independence from both Western and Soviet control. But his appeal to the Soviet Union for help against Belgian interference really alarmed the United States. The CIA backed a coup, and Lumumba was, well, brutally murdered. Mobutu Sese Seko took over, ruling with U.S. support for decades in a kleptocratic dictatorship. Number 3. 2001 to 2021, rooting out the Taliban. After September 11th, the United States invaded Afghanistan to topple the Taliban and root out al-Qaeda. But soon, the mission expanded to building a democratic state. For 20 years, the United States propped up a fragile government riddled with corruption. When the U.S. finally withdrew, the Taliban returned to power in just days. Democracy had been built on foreign money and borrowed time. Number 2, 1955 to 1975. Fighting communism, not freedom. In Vietnam, the United States tried to create a democratic South to counter communist North Vietnam. Billions of dollars, millions of lives, and, years of brutal war later, the United States left in defeat. The South fell. The people never got the democracy they were promised. Only war and devastation. And finally, number 1, 2003, the Iraq War. The United States invasion of Iraq was justified with the claim of weapons of mass destruction and the promise of democracy. Neither materialized as planned. Saddam Hussein was toppled, but sectarian violence, civil war, and the rise of ISIS followed. The democratic government that emerged struggled to function under constant instability. The cost? Over 1 million lives, trillions of dollars, and honestly, a region still recovering. Spreading democracy sounds noble, but when it's imposed by force, filtered through foreign interests, and followed by decades of suffering, it begs the question, was it ever about democracy at all? History isn't always what it seems. What are your thoughts? Drop them in the comments, like and share the video and subscribe for more.